The political landscape of the UK is currently on the edge of chaos, and at the centre of this storm stands Labour leader Keir Starmer, whose leadership is unravelling under the weight of internal rebellion and a deeply unpopular policy agenda. The party is at a breaking point, and the coming days will determine whether Starmer's Labour can salvage its credibility or sink further into disarray. The issue that has brought the party to this crisis is simple, but the ramifications are profound. The proposed cuts to welfare benefits, especially to personal independence payments, PIP, are a political disaster in the making. Starmer and his leadership team are gambling with the very soul of the Labour Party, and it is an exercise in political self-destruction that cannot be allowed to go unchecked. Let's be clear, Labour's decision to embrace austerity measures, including drastic cuts to welfare, is not only morally indefensible but politically suicidal. This is not the party of working people. This is not the party that has traditionally stood with the vulnerable, the disabled, and those on the margins of society. No matter how Starmer attempts to frame these cuts as necessary to tackle ballooning benefits bills or unsustainable welfare spending, the reality is that they betray the core values of Labour and alienate the very people who rely on it for support. Starmer's gamble may be politically expedient for some, but it is a betrayal of the principles Labour has held dear for over a century. Cuts to welfare, particularly the planned reductions to PIP, will leave millions of disabled individuals at risk of losing the support they need to survive. This is a decision that impacts the most vulnerable in society. If Starmer continues on this path, he will not only fracture the Labour Party internally but will also alienate working-class voters who view the party as the protector of their rights and dignity. The internal dissent within Labour is not just a storm in a teacup, it is a full-scale rebellion. The resignations of key MPs, the open defiance from figures like Diane Abbott and Clive Lewis, and the growing discontent among the party's left wing are not to be taken lightly. These MPs are the conscience of the party, and their opposition to the cuts is a cry of outrage against the abandonment of Labour's fundamental principles. This rebellion is not some abstract ideological debate, it's a battle for the heart and soul of Labour. Starmer's refusal to listen to his own party's rank and file is a glaring example of a leadership increasingly disconnected from the needs and concerns of its base. One might argue that tough decisions must be made to address the UK's growing budget deficit and unsustainable spending. But to use the most vulnerable members of society as pawns in a budgetary game is not leadership, it's cowardice. Starmer is caving to right-wing economic pressures and adopting policies that are not just unpopular but ethically bankrupt. It's one thing to make difficult choices in the face of financial constraints. It's another to make those choices in a way that disproportionately punishes the already disadvantaged. What's most troubling, however, is the complete lack of a coherent alternative vision. Labour's leadership, including Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves, appear to be acting on nothing more than a knee-jerk reaction to the rising costs of welfare. There's no vision for a better society, no long-term strategy for improving the economy without decimating public services. The cuts being proposed are short-sighted and superficial, ignoring the root causes of economic inequality while offering little in the way of real solutions. Labour needs to present a compelling case for economic reform that doesn't involve slashing essential services, but Starmer has failed to rise to the occasion. Moreover, the criticisms from the Conservative side only serve to underline the weakness of Starmer's position. Shadow Energy Secretary Andrew Bowie's remarks about Labour's infighting might be politically motivated, but they resonate with the British public. They reflect the growing perception that Labour is not only divided but aimlessly wandering without a clear sense of direction. For a party claiming to offer an alternative to the Tories, Labour's internal strife and contradictory positions on welfare cuts are a sign of fundamental dysfunction. This isn't just about policy disagreements, it's about the loss of a coherent identity and a clear message. If Starmer presses ahead with these cuts, he risks further alienating not only the left wing of his party but also a significant portion of the electorate that looks to Labour for leadership on social justice and equality. The public backlash is already growing, and the damage to Labour's credibility could be irreparable. The party is on the precipice, and it's difficult to see how Starmer can recover from this self-inflicted wound. The cuts may be politically expedient for some, but they come at the expense of the very voters Labour has historically been meant to represent. The next few days will be crucial in determining whether Labour can weather this storm or whether Starmer's leadership will collapse under the weight of his own decisions. The challenge now is whether the party can reclaim its soul, stand firm against austerity, and find a path forward that reflects the values of solidarity and justice. Starmer has a choice. Either he listens to the people within his own party and the electorate at large, or he doubles down on an agenda that is likely to lead Labour into political irrelevance. The stakes could not be higher. The Labour Party's future, and its moral standing, hangs in the balance.